This is Pete Gillies, retired from Western Helicopters after 41 years. And I want to share with you a technique that I developed over the years because nobody ever told me I couldn't do it this way. And I had no formal training in how to land in the mountains. If you look behind me, you'll see a mountain range that is the north side of the San Bernardino Valley in Southern California. The mountains right behind us run up to 7,000 feet. In the wintertime, we often have extremely strong north winds that come over these mountains toward where I'm sitting here. So we deal with the mountain environment, winds, and the normal weather-associated problems, rainfall, fog, and all that. We have customers that want to land at places they see while we're flying along. The best example is the U.S. Geological Survey. We have 6 Bell 47G 3B1s, turbocharged, sea level power up to 14,000 feet. On high skids, cargo baskets, each one set up for forest fire use. That's what we normally use for mountain flying for USGS, and they have a special way of requesting a landing. Flying along with the geologist on board, slowly, typically 200-300 AGL, and he is reading the ground like he's reading a book. All the colors and the cracks and the terrain mean something to a professional, high-level geologist who specializes in mountains and earthquake faults and things like that. So a typical request I would get would be, hey, Pete, you see that brown spot on the side of the mountain over there? I want to land there, pick up a sample. Okay, all I had to do was verify. You talk about the one on the left or the right, or the one on the right. Okay, fine. Step number 1 in the 4 steps of mountain flying that I taught and used here for decades with pilots that did not have to conform to the established FAA procedures that we've all been trained to recognize and to perform during formal check rides. Step number 1, shoot an approach to a hover and don't hit anything. That means all I have to do is be sure I'm going to the right spot. Maybe it's a mile or 2 away. It's a discoloration of the earth. The geologist wants to land right there and pick up a rock sample. Okay, no recon. Again, this is the way we do it at Western in these specialized cases. No recon. Fly to the requested landing area as though you had been there before. No recon, just identify it, and you can see behind me here, we don't have heavy forest in this part of California. So we're not dealing with trees and things like that. We're dealing with the bare grounds, deep slopes, winds, differences in temperature, and what's the density altitude where the geologist wants to land? I have no idea. Do I care? I do not care. I'm flying a turbocharged Bubble Bell, the legendary G3B1, of which I said we have 6. Power is never a problem with that particular helicopter. And the maintenance we had at Western was all done by former Vietnam mechanics. It was perfect. So I just shoot an approach. I might have to climb, descend, turn left or right, but the idea is I'm shooting an approach to the place he wants to land. That's step number 1. Shoot an approach to a hover and don't hit anything. You're not going to land. This is step 1. You're coming to a hover, and why are you doing that? To verify that you have enough OGE hover power to be safe. And by the way, the approach is always made with the slip indicator, the bubble, in the middle. If you have to come in crabbing to keep it in the middle, whatever, That's your first clue that there's a breeze there. Does that mean you should reject? No. A breeze of any kind, a nice steady breeze at your intended landing area, is great news. Okay, how do you establish what the wind is doing? You open a side window and see if you can feel buffeting? No, keep the ball in the middle as you're slowing down to a zero airspeed. OGE hover. That's step one. Now you can decide if you have enough power, pedal, and control to continue to step two, the landing. Also, the geologist can now verify that this is definitely where we want to land, or could we be 100 feet right or left or whatever. He makes the final decisions. Your next job is step two, land, and give yourself 3 tries. That doesn't mean backing away and trying 3 different times. What it means is that in the terrain we have here in Southern California, if there's any grass or anything on it, you don't know what your skids are going to be touching down on. Is it level? Are there rocks? You don't know. So give yourself 3 tries. Don't push that first landing. Smoothly lower the collective, fully aware of the rotor space, distance, and if your tail rotor is a factor, you have to obviously take that into consideration. But the point is, I want you to come in, do a hover without hitting anything, and give yourself 3 tries to get the landing right. You say, well, I can land, I don't need 3 tries. You'll be surprised. Many, many times you start to lower the collective smoothly in a tight area, and one skid touches first, and the aircraft starts to lean one way or another, front or back, because you can't see the landing area because of the normal vegetation. So give yourself 3 tries. Don't push it. Don't strain and push it and run out of control and then have to redo it. The minute it feels like it could be better, smoothly lift it up gently and move it a little bit, sideways, forward, backward, until you find a place that you can put the collective all the way down and go to idle. Give yourself 3 tries. Happy? Stable? Remember, your geologist is going to get out, your CG is going to change right there. So all these things factor in. He opens his door, he smoothly gets out, and you sit there at idle. He goes and picks up rock samples in his canvas bag. Eventually he comes back to the helicopter, climbs in, plunks the bag of rocks on the floor between the two of you, which changes the weight and the CG of the aircraft. Now, step 3. He's belted in, doors closed, everything's green on the panel, everything's good, all lights are out. You're at 100% RPM. Step 3 is, and I use the term very carefully here, levitate to a hover. What's the difference between just going to a hover? Levitate is my way of saying, do this very, very carefully. You don't know if a skid is hooked on something or will hook as you lift up. You don't know. Remember, you couldn't see the exact landing area when you landed. You also can't see it when you're going to lift off. Lift off as though a skid might be stuck on something momentarily. Lift off that way. Levitate to a cover. There's no hurry. You're not going anywhere. Just free the aircraft from the ground smoothly. You're now in a hover. If you can't come up smoothly and you find there's a big CG problem, you're just inches above the terrain, smoothly put it back down, fix the problem until when you pick the aircraft up and hover, the cyclic is reasonably in the middle, and everything's good and green, and you're happy. You're now in a hover. Now comes the takeoff. And this was a very, very critical part of the 4 steps. I want your takeoff to be vertical. I don't care if there's nothing in front of you. I do not want a takeoff where you pick it up, roll it forward, and race out over the canyon to try and gain airspeed. No. Because often there's an obstruction in front of you, especially if you've landed in the trees at the high country, north of Big Bear Lake here, 7,000 feet and up. We have heavy forest. If you've landed in a clearing there and you've loaded up with whatever, don't think that by hovering and then starting forward and up, you're going to pick up enough power to clear the trees. Don't do that. You weigh more now than you did when you landed. You have no idea what's going on your way up to the treetops. You don't know what the wind is up there. You don't know what the temperature is. You may be in the dark forest on the ground. What's going on up there on top? You don't want to be at red line power with the idea that you're going to gain some airspeed and clear the treetops, not with a real confined area. Otherwise, you end up in the trees and you don't go to work tomorrow. Don't take that chance. There's no need to. Start up vertically. Are you happy with the CG in a hover? You're free of the ground, everything's good? Fine. Straight up. Pull the power. Don't worry about breaking the engine or the drive line by pulling full power. It's there for you to use. It may be very tempting to start toward the trees. And these trees, we're talking 100, 150 feet tall. You're climbing up and something changes. You don't like what's happening. You'd like to offload one passenger or something. Fine. Stop and hover back down. Just come straight down. But once you start forward, it either works or it doesn't work. And there's enough evidence, including locally here, where helicopters didn't make it, and the results are tragic. So those are the 4 steps. I'm going to repeat them. Want to land over there? Shoot an approach to a hover very smoothly, slowing down and keeping the ball in the middle until your OGE hover. I say OGE because all this stuff behind us here basically requires an OGE hover. There's no IGE, except on the tops of the ridges. There's no IGE. You're always going to be OGE in a hover before you try and work yourself into an acceptable landing area. So all you're going to do is come to an OGE hover. I want you to look at the panel, look at the flight controls, look at the terrain, look at the branches, the brush, the rocks, and all that, and decide if you'd like to proceed to a landing. Your knowledgeable geologist passenger may say, no, don't bother. I can see we can't get in there. When he says that or she says that, that's great. That's money in the bank. That means you can back off and go find a better place. But often it's up to you, the pilot, and if you're shy on experience, you especially need to slow down to a stop. Don't worry about the engine quitting. Worry about hitting something. Worry about running out of pedal, all kinds of things. Now, you get in close to the spot, nice, safe, rotor diameter away from it, you're looking at it. Is the aircraft leaning? Fine, that's because it's fighting the wind. Turn the pedal so the aircraft's pointing this way and the landing zone is in front of you. That at least gives you an immediate wind report right there and gives you an idea of the power you have available. It was almost cheating flying the turbocharged Bells because they had, as I said earlier, sea level power to 14,000 feet. And the way the wastegates were adjusted at our company by the Vietnam mechanics, you could usually probably have sea level power to 25,000 feet because they tightened up the wastegate springs, and you could keep on pulling pitch, manifold pressure going up, up, up when you needed to. We didn't purposely use that extra power, but it was always there. The visibility, of course, is important. Some helicopters have very restricted visibility from the cockpit in doing these kind of landings. The Bubble Bell is legendary, the 500. Anything that has glass in front of you and below you and either no doors or glass to the bottom where you, the pilot, can really get a feel for what's happening, where you're going. Anyway, those are the 4 steps. Shoot an approach to a hover. Forget the landing. Now evaluate the power. Evaluate everything you can see in a hover. Don't be afraid to hover. If you're afraid the engine is going to quit, don't go on the flight. It's that simple. I want you to have confidence in the helicopter. Engine failures in those environments would probably end your career, to put it very mildly. But don't worry about it, or you're going to be doing things that will create problems that you can't solve. You'll be trying to do things too fast, stay above translational lift, blah, 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 all because you think the engine's going to quit. If it quits in the mountains behind us here on a slope, all the way to the bottom, all the way to the bottom. That's the risk you take. When the maintenance is excellent and the ship is a wonderful, reliable aircraft, and you have enough fuel for the job, you're set to go. So 4 steps. Shoot an approach to a hover, and whatever it takes in the hover, aircraft leaning in a hover, there's a spot you want to land. Aircraft leaning one or another. Why? Because the wind is trying to blow you offside. Turn the aircraft until the ball's in the middle, aircraft level, and now you know which way the wind is coming from, and you have an idea of the wind velocity. You may be able to use that in making the final approach to the landing area. Work your way in. Want to try to land? 3. Give yourself 3 tries. Don't push it, because again, most of the time you have no idea what you're landing on until you try the landing. Give yourself 3 tries. Go to idle or shut down, whatever the customer wants. When you're ready to take off again, you've got probably, in the case of USGS, you have a change in CG and weight because of rocks or soil that they picked up and they want to take back to the lab. You may also pick up a passenger. So anticipate that. Pick it up in a hover smoothly, and don't plan on going anywhere. You're going to lift the aircraft up, and you're going to look at the panel, see what kind of power you have available. Make sure that you are over the area where you landed, because you're going to probably be backing straight out, maybe through obstructions. All you have to do is back it up without going left or right, without hitting anything, and get out away from anything overhead. And are you ready for takeoff? Fine. Passengers belted, everything's good. Everything's reasonably in the green. Collective, straight up. Even if you could dive off and gain airspeed, racing down the side of the mountain, I want that takeoff to be vertical until you are absolutely sure that you don't have to return to the site, that you have cleared everything, everything's good. Because if it's not, you can just reduce collective and come back down and land again. Those are your 4 steps. We've used those and taught those for years. In the military, as you know, those of you that have been trained in the military, you are told to do things in a certain way, and normally there are members of your unit at the landing site where they're going to help marshal you in. You may have somebody in the back seat watching your tail rotor, and on it goes. Usually 2 pilots in the larger aircraft. Here, single pilot, single engine. It's your eyes and your judgment, your smoothness to make it work. Those are your 4 steps of mountain flying. Thank you. What am I going to do in the mountains here if I have an engine failure? I'll probably be buried the next day, because there's nothing friendly here in these steep slopes. And if you have an engine failure at the wrong point, witnesses will see the aircraft wreckage tumbling down the canyon, and that's it.